right, let's start it up. All right, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, we've got Cupcake and the Northman here on the FOPT's podcast. We're on our second episode. We're going to kind of break down a few different things that we've been kind of talking back and forth over a little bit, starting off with trucker appreciation. Matt, I'm going to let you have the floor on that for a little bit, and then I'll chime in afterwards.
Oh, good gracious. Where do we start with this mess? Brother, we've been out here for what, 50 years, a little over 50 years combined. If you listen to podcast one, you'd tell that we've been out here for a long time. This trucker appreciation, wow, what a joke. I think we saw more appreciation from the public during the last bits of COVID there, where they were coming out and helping the truck drivers with food and hot meals than we've seen from, the big common carriers and the communities as a whole at this time. It's an absolute joke when you actually look at trucker appreciation. We don't have it. These mega carriers, which, you and I are going to talk a lot about, over the course of time while we're doing this, are some of the worst at appreciation for their truck drivers. And you notice I'm not using the word driver, my friend. You know how I feel about the word driver. I think it's a degradation. Driver appreciation month, I'm sorry, that's a degradation of what we do. It takes away from the professionalism that we are, and I think it's done for a reason. But
without a doubt,
taken away from that, we see professional truckers all over the country during, that are out here still pushing it during this appreciation month, making sure that our country's taken care of. You and I are two of them. And you walk into the travel centers or the people that you work for, and you might get a free cup of coffee that day. And you're sitting there going, okay, well, I've paid $3 a cup of coffee for the last 52 weeks, and I get one free cup of coffee. That's your appreciation for me, is you're going to spend $3 on me, which really, you and I know, bottom root cost before they charge it up or jack up the rates. They might be spending $1.50 on you.
They're not even spending that. Coffee doesn't cost that much.
Yeah, not at the bulk rate that they're paying for it.
That cup of coffee costs $0.25.
We talked about, you and I do a lot of conversating, and when we talk, we talked about how similar the truck drivers across the nation really are as far as being treated. We know that the jobs differ. We know some are a little more hectic than others. And we'll get into that in another episode, but we're all out here pushing it. Yep. Every single one of us. There's not a one of us that's not away from our families at weeks at a time, days at a time, sometime months at a time.
Yeah.
There are old timers out here, dude, if they're not doing a year at a time because they really don't have anybody at home at this point, because they've sacrificed so much that their families have, they're just not there anymore. So they're pushing until they can't push anymore. But where's the appreciation for those guys, for those men and women? It doesn't exist.
Well, it's basically an office party. I mean, think about it. When you look at any of these carriers, it's basically an office party. You show up and you'll see any one of them. And I'm not going to start naming names, but you can go into any one of them, and it's a hot dog and hamburger show for the office people. The drivers aren't coming through the terminals that much.
Well, and that's the thing. They'll sit there and say, well, we're going to do a barbecue for you guys. Okay. Listen, we know what you're making on the backside. We know these drivers, these professional truckers haven't seen a raise in since 1980. The rates are not really moved. So they're not seeing the money that they actually deserve. But we're going to throw a picnic for you and a barbecue. It's going to be on this day and this day. And 90% of their truck drivers are never going to make it through there.
No, they're like 600 miles away at best.
Well, yeah, at best. And they know, and the sad thing is that they already know this. Uh-huh. These carriers have tracking on every one of their trucks and every one of their professional drivers. The owner operators suffer even worse because they really have nobody to show appreciation to. The only ones that you hope that would show appreciation are the travel centers. They're not truck stops or travel centers. And like I said, you're getting $1.50 free cup of coffee once during that month.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really a slap in the face. But free cup of coffee, and then here, it's going to cost you $20 for a shower today. So there's no real trucker appreciation. Uh, and I think everybody, as far as professional truck drivers in this country, need to start realizing that we aren't so different. Uh, there's an old saying, I believe I said it in our first podcast, is no two truckers can agree on the same thing. And I disagree with that wholeheartedly. I believe that if everybody would stop with the disputing, I believe that we can actually start to recognize that every one of us is taking hits left and right out here, especially during this appreciation month.
Well, we all
What are you actually being appreciated for?
well, and see, the thing of it is I think this is where to get everybody to come together. I think some of this also needs to get to where we need to have some people to realize that there are parts of this industry that's a little bit more dangerous than the rest, and it's a little bit harder than the rest at times. And I say this basically on the livestock side because I've been there and I've done that. But see, this is where
Well,
you get people that, which don't get me wrong, we all, when we're out there driving that truck, we're all doing the same job driving that truck. We're all trying to keep it between the lines and making sure we don't run over a small Volkswagen, okay? And trying to make sure that they don't bounce into us because they're on their phone not paying attention to what they're doing. And yes, that part of it, but we need to start there to bring unity. We need to be able to realize the different aspects of these jobs. Like, we'll just say, like, for instance, car haulers. Okay. You're up on top of that. Once you bring that car up on that top lift and you're up there and you're coming out of it, that's a danger right there, you being falling. Okay.
absolutely.
There is and nobody's wearing a harness. Nobody's
Nope.
there.
No.
I don't think I've ever seen one where you pull in and there's an overhead that you can hook a pelican hook to, and you got a
Right.
lanyard and a full body harness on to not fall. Which is against OSHA regulations because anything over 4 foot you're required to be tied off. But that's a
Hmm.
whole other episode there.
Sure it is.
But the thing of it is that we have to. I've pulled reefer, I pulled van freight. There's not a
Right.
lot of danger being backed into the dock, sitting in your bunk, watching TV while they're unloading you or you're waiting to get
No,
unloaded.
not at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
But when you loading up, we'll just say, I don't know, we'll throw it out there. You're loading up 30 or 32 18s on cows, and you got them running up to shoot at you. You get one of them gets a wild hair up their butt, they're coming at you. I've been put in the ICU. It ain't no fun. And that's where I think we need to get people to understand that when every aspect of the job is different in trucking. And I think that's where we need, for like appreciation, we need to start getting inside the community of our industry and appreciating what it is we all go through at times. Yes, driving the truck
Okay.
is dangerous out on the road. We are more, our think when I last time I looked at the statistics on it, I think our industry is more dangerous than the fire, police, and there was one other. We're like in the top five of most dangerous professions
Yeah.
out there. Okay.
Right.
And so, yes, we do need to, everybody needs to appreciate that we are all in that because, well, I mean, we've seen it, like the big one that was happening here just a few weeks ago with the guy making the U-turn in the middle of the highway
Right.
in a semi. Okay. That's extremely dangerous on both sides of the highway because one,
Oh,
he's
absolutely.
slowing down on this side, and the other side, he's not up to speed and probably blocking both lanes to get on to go back the other direction. So, yes, there's a danger there. And that needs
Well,
to be
and you're right.
appreciated there. But we also need to remember there, like a lot of the van drivers, because a lot of the freight is van freight, your
Hmm.
danger ends once you put it in the dock. Okay. Once it's in the
For
dock,
that,
you've lost your danger at that point.
yeah, for that period of
So,
time, yes, it's over. And I agree. I believe we start with r- redoing driver appreciation by doing it within our own community and appreciating one another. once we actually take that back, and this again, this goes back to our re-engineering conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It to re-engineer the whole thing, you have to start from the bottom, and you have to look interior as well as exterior. And our community right now is torn. You just said it yourself. I was a car hauler. You were a bull hauler. Listen, I grew up with a bull hauler. My dad was a bull hauler. I ran with him. I know the dangers behind it. I ran but the bull hauler and what you're up against as far as time wise is a lot different than what I faced as a car hauler.
Oh yeah.
Uh, the time restraints that you're on to get livestock moved from one section to another puts you at a higher risk of danger because the amount of miles that you got to turn to get that livestock off before, well, let's say midwinter, before it freezes. One bull drops or one cow drops because it froze to death because you took too long. You may have lost the whole load. uh, with cars, it's a little different. Wintertime, yes, it's dangerous. We're walking that tightrope up on the top. It's icy, it's metal, but it's a different kind of danger. Same with these heavy haulers. You have to show each aspect of trucking its own respect. It, when it comes to reefers and dry vans, the danger with reefers and dry vans isn't so much in the job of hauling that freight. The danger is being conscious of the fact that when you walk out the door, you may not walk back in. Just like every other truck driver. Okay, there's no shifting freight. You're not, unless you're an LTL driver, you're not handling the freight. It's not as dangerous as car hauling, bull hauling, heavy hauling, oversized, any of these specialized freights. And it's not to say that you're less of a truck driver. There's just less of a responsibility as far as the freight that you're hauling and the dangers that are behind that. And once we can get away from it, listen, I'm not going to be the guy to sit here and say that car hauling is the top of the peak. It was for me. It was highly motivational. It was highly physical. It was, it had a lot of dangers. I can remember carrying tubes and tubes and tubes of super glue because at 6.5 feet tall on a 4 foot car carrier, you're cracking your head every single day, and you can't run to the ER every day. So, but we got to recognize that right now in our society, you got the bull haulers, which, the cattle and the livestock that are pushed to their almost absolute limits to get this livestock moved. And there's no other way to do it but the way that they're doing it because the railroads don't do it anymore. So this is the only way to move this livestock.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to give props to the livestock haulers. You got to give props to what they do. Their bragging has some backing to it. We don't.
There's not some.
I am not.
There's not some.
I'm not.
I'm going to just tell you right now. There's not some. Okay.
I know.
Until I want to see some of these guys that can only get 300 miles done. Until
Right.
you've loaded up 30 or 40 head
Right.
and ran yourself 1,400 miles.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Don't we?
Well, and
us
that's
bull haulers or past bull haulers, because I'm retired of that at this point.
right.
I've too many injuries, but
There you
there's
go.
a reason of why the bull haulers are, because I mean, most people are not driving 1,400 miles straight.
No, and most people can't.
No, they
especially this day and age. Most people can't this day and age. My hat's off to bull haulers. I will always show respect for them. But I also understand that there are other aspects of the trucking that are not as dangerous, not as pushing, but just as.
well, think about it this way, flatbed.
Well, and we have, yes, flatbed as well.
Suicide coils. You get these jackasses that want to pull out in front of you, and you got a 40,000 pound Big Bertha on your back there.
Right.
I mean, that right there is in somewhat comparison to bull hauling, because you just jam on the brakes when you got a load of cattle back there. You're breaking hips, you're breaking legs, you're breaking necks, you're breaking something. because they don't know that you're getting ready to stop, so they're all just going to go clamming into everything. Well,
Yeah.
same way with a big old suicide coil on your back.
Right.
Somebody cuts you off, you jam it. Yeah, you've got to probably 10 chains on it or something like that, trying to be safe.
Right.
But what
Right.
happens if one of those chains you didn't see that hairline crack and that
Yep.
link breaks, and you slam that. Now you got 40,000 pounds trying to turn you into a
You ain't
pancake.
stop. Yeah. You ain't stopping that 40,000 pound roll.
You best bet be to look
Eh,
in the mirror and get ready to jump out the door is what you best bet be
that's
doing.
there.
So,
You better bet. But yeah, and that's the thing. If we can show appreciation to one another, uh, whether it be Trucker Appreciation Month, whether it be later down the road, that every aspect of trucking has its own respects to it. As far as dry van and reefer, listen, been out here 26 years. I'm running a reefer now. It's a little lighter on my back. It's a little easier on my health.
mhm.
I'm able to stop and get out when I want to get out a little bit more. It's nicer than what it was with auto carrying. Auto carrying was work, 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 work.
Oh,
It was a push and a grind.
yeah.
Um, it was loading, unloading, getting to the next stop. It was mileage. It was everything. So this is a slower pace for me now, which is fine. I want to make it to year 50 in a truck. I really do. I want to be able to say I did it. Um, I've reached my point, and my point with where I'm at with my truck. I love my rig, uh, and again, we can talk about aspects of truck. We can talk about trucks, Kenworth versus Peterbilt, Freightliner versus Volvo. And the fact is, it's not one is greater than the other. It's how good it is for the personal driver that's in it, the personal truck driver. It's what they want.
Well, and see, this is where you got to get into the business aspect as far as appreciation goes, because look, in a business aspect, I'm an owner operator and I have
Right.
my own authority. Like it all rests on me. I've got like 15
Yep.
hats that I wear. So when you're looking at when you're looking at purchasing a truck, and you have to look at profitability when you're looking at purchasing a truck, because
Absolutely.
and one of those things is fuel mileage. Because don't get me
Yep.
wrong, I've driven the 359, I've driven a 379, I've driven a 389, I've driven a W9. I've also driven a Volvo, I've driven Freightliners, I've done the FLD Classics. I own a
Yep.
Cascadia. Okay,
Right.
that's the truck I own is a Cascadia. It's a
Right.
midroof. I can't
Yep.
do the flat top thing. I'm 6'2", and I like to be able to stand up in the morning. So I'll never do a flat top thing. I don't care.
Yeah, me
I
neither.
was
Me
there at
neither. I
one
can't
time.
fit.
I can tell you this. I can remember when I first one of the first trucks I started driving was a K100. So I know what it means to climb in the back.
Yeah.
There,
Yeah.
you wanted to stand up. There was no standing up till you got out the truck. So, and
Yep.
if it was 30 below, that's the only way you're standing up. So yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like the mid roof. Like to be able to
Yep.
stand up, put my pants
There
on,
you go.
kind of stretch a little bit in
Right.
the morning, you know. But the thing back to where I was saying here, I digress. You, you have to look at the profitability side on it, and because if you don't, yeah, you're cool looking. And don't get me wrong, I like it. Those stretched out 379s, man, they ride like they're on a cloud. And the same way
All
with the
those
W9s, they ride
yeah,
like they're on a
W9s are
cloud.
no different. Yeah.
Them large cars, they're beautiful too,
Yeah.
but there is a cost factor that comes in with that on the fuel
Right.
mileage side. Yeah, there are things you can do with gear ratios and the transmission in the rear end and
Yep.
keeping your foot out of the throttle and so on and so forth. But still, you have to look at the aerodynamic side of it.
Well,
You
who in the
know,
world can keep their foot out of a 389 and not want to get down the road, or a 379 and not want to hear that thing wind up?
well, but see, that
I
just
don't.
depends because I passed quite a few of them going up mountains because I'm deleted and I'm sitting at
Oh yeah.
I got about 575 under the hood of my little Cascadia.
There you go. Yeah.
My
I don't know.
little
In a
Tupperware
pull.
torpedo, she'll get up and move. Okay. So and I do enjoy passing the large cars and just smiling and waving because they're only
Yep.
running
Yep.
in their
Yep.
little 475 cat that they got. Yeah, she sounds nice, but you ain't going up the hill the same fast as I am. And
All right.
I'm getting just around 6 on a mile per gallon. So,
Well,
I
it's
could do
just a
better
matter
if I
of
kept my foot out of the throttle. But
right.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
you know,
Yeah. I'm no different.
yeah.
But we need to recognize that it's not the truckers are, whatever a trucker's. preference is for a truck or whatever their preference is for that part of the industry that they're hauling in, whether it be, hey, listen, I got a huge respect for tanker drivers.
Yeah.
These guys are hauling gasoline and propane and milk. Oh, good gracious, the milk guys that are out here pushing it every early morning. I've got appreciation for every aspect. I believe that every one of us, heavy haul, cattle haul, livestock, it doesn't matter where you are. I have appreciation for every one of them because although the jobs differ, there's not a one of us that leaves the house with a guarantee that we're coming home.
No.
Not a one of us.
And the other thing is we all have to be here. Because
Yeah.
I can tell you right now, if you got an old lady who's got a shopping addiction problem, I'm sure she's got an Amazon account, and
Oh yeah.
Amazon's pulling a van trailer. Okay, so if you got an old lady that's got a shopping addiction problem and she's got an Amazon account, if you ain't got van drivers, she ain't getting her stuff. You know,
Well,
and it's
and
the same
and
way
you
with the
know,
grocery stores though too with the reefer side.
right,
You know,
right,
here in Ohio, when here in about 2 months, well, we're probably about the end of our growing season, really, right now. We're in a little warm spell here in Ohio, but we're probably only going to have about another 2 or 3 weeks. And then there's no longer growing fruits and vegetables in your backyard garden.
right,
So we have to have the reefer drivers that are willing to go out to California or Arizona or Florida and bring that produce up to us.
right.
Because if not, I'm not eating tomatoes come January, at least not ones that are
Oh yeah,
sliced. I'm gonna I'll like pull some out that are canned, but who wants a canned tomato on their sandwich? You want to make yourself a
right.
nice, loose meat sandwich. You want to slice tomato on there, or a hamburger, or cheeseburger, whatever. We all
Well, it
have
takes it.
we all have a place, and we have to be there
Well,
for the truck
and
bed to
that's how
work.
you look at. That's how you got to look at it. Okay, you start with the farm. Let's just look at one farm. The farm has, they have the produce, they have the livestock. In that one farm, you're going to need a reefer, you're going to need a van, you're going to need a livestock hauler, you're going to need an oversized because they're going to bring equipment, new equipment in, old equipment out, whatever it is that the farm needs. So you already got four styles. If it's a milking place, you got five. You got a tanker coming in there. So a farm already. I mean, you're already looking at five different aspects of trucking just going into a farm. And honestly, if they're moving hay, you got a flatbed in there.
Yeah. Well, the thing of it is
So
if it's a big enough farm, they're moving it with a tank regardless because they're bringing fuel in.
well, and exactly. So
So
you got to. So you're looking at every one of us has a job specific, and yes, some are bragging, have the right to brag. Cattle haul or livestock. Listen, I'm 26 years in. Could I do what the livestock do? Yeah, absolutely. For about 2 weeks now. After 2 weeks, my body is yelling at me. No, no, we're cutting it back to 80 hours this week, and we ain't going any farther. Um, I'm beyond that point. I'm not here to prove myself anymore. And a
yeah.
lot of these the livestock haulers still are out there trying to prove a point, and I respect that.
Well, I think it's a lot
But
of the young guys though that are also doing that.
oh yeah,
Because a
absolutely,
lot of the guys that
absolutely,
I know that are still hauling that are my age, they're not proving anything. Because
yeah,
I
no,
know a few guys that they're well over 3 million miles because
oh yeah,
they've mainly hauled cattle all their life, and when they were younger they kind of did like I did. Spring and fall
well,
run
and
come around and we're out, and sometimes we wouldn't even come back.
right.
Screw it, we'll throw pigs on that wagon. Come on with it.
So that's what what we need to do is we need to start appreciating one another and recognizing that we all have hauled for the same farm at one point or another. It doesn't matter what you're hauling, and show respect for one another. We can get into what a professional truck driver is, and we will. But right now, it's respect for one another out here on the road and the respect that every one of us chose that morning to get up, be out here on the road, under knowing the fact that we may not make it back to our families, may not make it back to our loved ones, and with the roads, with conditions and uh, the community cars that are out here now, and the way people aren't paying attention, that risk goes up for a truck driver every day.
It does.
And And we need to show appreciation for one another because nobody else, state wise, community wise, we're not seeing appreciation on any level.
Well, and see, I could to talk about on not seeing it. I was just sitting here thinking about some of that is some of the drive, and I'm going to say this one because I differentiate between trucker and driver.
Okay.
We have drivers out here because they're the ones that you see at the pilots and the TAs and the loves, and they're sweeping out all their garbage out on the back lot,
Yeah.
or they're
Yeah.
leaving the pee bottles in when the trash cans literally at the back of their trailer, and they're leaving their
Right.
buffalo bag and their pee bottle in the parking lot or their
Yeah.
trash.
Okay.
Okay. So
You're right.
there, this is where we also for the trucker appreciation side. Yes, we need to recognize each other as that we all do have a dangerous job while we're driving. And then when the different aspects of the jobs come in outside of the driving, whether it's the
Right.
loading of a flatbed or loading of a livestock or whatever, that's where those things change. But also,
Right.
we need to start holding our own people accountable for this nonsense or this nastiness, I should say, of leaving the pee bottles and the buffalo bags, and or just like I seen here, I mean, I've been off for 3 weeks because of repairs and stuff, but that and my little hospital stay that I had to have. But
Right.
um they I literally watched a guy, he comes out of the truck stop. He comes out, he has his food, he's sitting there, he eats the food, and I'm behind another truck waiting to fuel. So I watch this guy, he eats the fuel. Well, he's actually on this side of me. He eats the fuel, or he eats in the fuel island there, and then he just throws his bag out the window when the trash can's right there. He could have literally come down, it's 2 steps to get out of your truck. Come down the 2 steps, put the bag of trash in the trash can, and then go on down the road. Instead, he just rolled his window out and just dropped it out the window and left. And I'm like,
Well,
how are
okay,
you
and
this
that gets
nasty? How are you this
well,
nasty?
that's yeah, well, look at where they're hiring from. They're not hiring professionals. They're hiring
Well,
to fill
this
seats.
is true.
We're seeing it on a regular basis, and when that we'll touch on that again later down the road. But we're seeing this 60,000 driver shortage is a
It's a
nonsense lie.
hoax.
What it
It's a hope to
is
drive our wages down is what it is.
well, it's a hoax to drive wages down, but what it is the mega carriers can't find qualified drivers to fill their trucks because they mistreat their drivers so well or so badly.
Well, there's that
I
too,
mean,
yes.
you might hear one good testimony out of 50 truck drivers that have worked for that company. So if it's that bad and they can't fill seats, of course they're going to go to the media and push this big uh, narrative, which is a false narrative, but they're going to push this big narrative
Yeah.
so that they can get their seats filled or adopt new regulations or less regulations to fill those seats. And that's what we're seeing right now is we're seeing a lack of professionalism inside the trucking industry. And you're right, accountability is, and you and I had talked about this before we put this group together. Accountability was not going to be just for the mega carriers. It wasn't going to be just for the regulators. It wasn't going to be for just the organizations out here taking money out of our professional truckers' wallets. It was going to be for the interior and our community as well.
Yeah.
And we're going to hold accountability one factor or another, and we'll figure out the solution one way or another. If it means walking up to you and throwing your trash back in your window, expect a whole pile of trash to come back through your window. If it means that you throw a buffalo bag out your door and don't do nothing, expect somebody to walk by it and tie it to your mirror and drive down the road with it. It lets you be the one that's embarrassed because you didn't do a pre-trip and didn't recognize it. You'll have what's the contents of that buffalo bag all over the side of your truck as you're driving down the road. There has to be accountability, interior as well as exterior, and this is what FOPT is about. It's a re-engineering of the entire trucking industry and how it's done. And if there's going to be a lot of people that are going to look at us and go, "You're taking on the giant of giants," and yeah, we are. But
Well, it is what it
I
is. We got to start somewhere.
We have to start
And
somewhere.
you can't
We
just
have to
we
start
can't just
somewhere.
be an ostrich and go stick our head in the sand and expect change because
Well, look what's
nothing
happened by
happens.
doing that.
Look what
Well,
happens
look,
with an ostrich when they stick their head in the sand. The mountain lion's still getting ready to attack them.
oh yeah, mountain lion's still taking them
You know what
down.
I
That's
mean?
just an easier
Yeah,
target.
all they did was they just put their head down so they couldn't see it coming. That's all they
Yeah,
did.
basically.
They just can't. They just now they're not seeing it come. Which
Well, and
that
that's the
doesn't work
problem we
out.
have. That's the one of the major problems we have in this country right now is that we've put our heads down because either out of fear or out of necessity or out of I just don't want to deal with this right now. That time has come to an end. We got to stop. We got to pull our heads out of the sand and say enough's enough. We're just done. This is and with trucking, I have a love and a passion for it that extends that'll extend me through my lifetime. I love it that much. I'm tired of seeing it go the way it goes. I'm tired of watching the people that are behind it make the changes they want to see happen just to put an extra couple dollars in their pocket. It's got to end, and the professionalism there has to be a new bar of professionalism.
Well,
There just has to be.
and one of the things with the professionalism we kind of touched on last episode was we have to remove the prejudice out of this for trucker appreciation. We have to remove the prejudice out of it as well.
Oh, I
Look,
agree.
our country was founded upon people coming from another place to start this country. Okay, because we
For a
all
better
know
life,
that's for a better
better
life and
opportunities.
better
Uh,
opportunities. And I'm going to say it right now. I'm sure there's people out there that are going to say, "Oh, but I don't care what you got to say about that." If they come over here, whether it's he, she, or whatever, the gentleman or lady comes over here and they come over here as an immigrant, not a migrant, but an immigrant, somebody who's coming over here to get their citizenship, to get their CDL the right way, to learn how to and to assimilate themselves into our culture, the United States of America's culture, then we need to accept them, Now, if they're out there and they're not doing a good job because they decided they wanted to go the short route and not learn how to speak English, or they're being nasty, and they're wanting to leave buffalo bags or pee bottles in places, or they're sweeping out their trucks or whatever, that might have been acceptable in where they came from. And this is
right.
where should be a teaching moment, not you know, a belittling moment.
Right.
If you're seeing this happen, why don't you say something to them? It's like a lot of times people sit there and say, when you watch your different social media reels or whatever, and then you'll see in the comments, well, why didn't you get out and say it to their face? This is where drivers need to get out and say it to their face. If you see somebody, now mind you, the one that I seen, he was driving on, and well, I'm 6'2", I'm 280 pounds, and I don't run a 4.440. Okay, so I'm not catching a
Right.
truck that's
Right.
driving away. But if I do see,
I'm
it's like,
sorry. I'm just picturing that
yeah,
image.
I'm going to look like a freaking silverback gorilla chasing after this guy with a receded hairline is what I look like. Okay, especially if I haven't shaved my back for the day and it's starting to come out
Right.
the
Right. Right.
collar here. So, but yeah, I mean, but if you see it, say something. What are you doing, man? The trash can's right over here. Put it in the trash
Yeah.
can. It's not that hard. It's 10 feet.
Right.
Which is like
Right.
what, 3 paces, three and then some paces for 10 feet. I
Yeah.
mean, come on, but that's where I understand we have cultural differences from people coming into the United States. And there are some that, like I've talked to some, I talked to a guy who was driving a 379. He had watched all the Smokey and the Bandits growing up
Yeah. Yeah.
overseas.
Yeah.
He had
Yeah.
watched Convoy, Over the Top. He had seen all the real good trucker movies that were all made in the 70s and 80s
Yeah.
there,
Yeah. Yeah.
and everybody knows 379 or W9 is when you've gotten into one of those, you basically have kind of hit the top. When you're
Yeah.
driving
Well,
one of those,
that's a lot of people.
that's
That's
I'm
the top
driving.
of your career.
That's it.
Yeah.
Somebody's trusting me to drive their large car.
Yeah.
This is it. That I can under. That's where I say, like, a lot of times with the cattle side and the livestock side, most of those guys don't own those trucks. They're driving for somebody else, and they're
Right.
but that somebody else has entrusted that guy or that gal to
Right.
run, because I know some guys that run like basically show trucks that haul
Yeah.
livestock, and
Yeah.
they're 200 plus $1,000 trucks all day long, and you're
Oh yeah.
literally putting somebody that you don't know nothing about in a almost $250,000 just tractor, not including the trailer, just the tractor alone,
Yeah. That
you know.
tractor.
So, but he had come over and he had seen that three, and he got a 379, and he was telling me how proud he was that he got his citizenship. He
Yep.
was a United States citizen. He spoke broken English. He had still had his accent, which I think he
Right.
was like 40 years of living in his home country. So I mean, that's to be
It's pretty
understood.
well
You
ingrained.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but he got his 379, but he took care of his truck. He was so proud to take care of his truck, but he was looked down upon because of his heritage, his ancestry,
Right.
his original nationality, if you will. Which he was from Afghanistan. You know, so which the guy's
Well,
out there doing a
and that's a
job though. He's out there,
yeah.
he's doing the
He's
job.
doing he's feeding your family.
Yeah, and he's taking care. The thing of it is, the truck was beautiful. I mean, he
Yeah.
literally, you could tell that he very much
Took a
took
lot of
care of
pride.
of that truck. I mean,
Yeah.
the tires were shined, the wheels were polished. He had a nice underglow kit underneath of it. Um,
Right.
the mirrors, the fenders were all like, the paint was beautiful, clear. Like you could tell he waxed that thing probably at least weekly. Not if
Right.
every day he rubbed on that girl. And he loved it. But that's where we need to respect those guys just because they're from Afghanistan or Pakistan or China or whatever country they're from. You know, there still needs to be a respect there, regardless of, and remove the prejudice thinking just because of
You
the
can
foreigner mindset
yeah,
that we hear. Well, they're a foreigner, you know.
you need to look past the foreigners and start recognizing they're just people. This division across the board is getting very old. It's getting very tiring. It's one of the reasons why this country will not go anywhere because we just continue to divide, 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 and divide. Our industry sees it every day. But if you can tell the professional truck drivers that are out here, you can tell how much they care about their rigs, and you can tell the ones that don't. You and I have both seen the trucks that are going down the road with half of a front bumper, a side mirror completely missing, rails that are gone, an ICC bumper that's held on by duct tape or baling wire. These are the things that are no truck driver. That's not a professional truck driver. That's somebody who's just looking to make money and is beating the crap out of the vehicle. They're not. There's no care about anybody. I'm sorry if somebody's going down the road with half a bumper, no side mirror, you can't even tell if something's coming up your passenger side, your ICC bumper is duct taped on or held on by straps. To me, you don't care about anybody on that road because by the looks of your truck, you could care less if you're even on the road. Uh, you can tell the professionalism by the vehicle they're driving. Now, I'm not saying just because it's dirty, they're not professional. Everybody has a rough week. Everybody runs low on funds where you can't spend $150 at the truck wash that week. But when parts are missing and it's falling apart and you got fenders and everything else falling off or flapping on the ground as they're driving down the road, or any of that stuff is going on, that's not a professional truck driver, doesn't belong on the highway as far as I'm concerned. Stop looking at the individual, the color of skin, the race, where they come from. You don't know their story until you sit down and have a meal with them. Look at that truck. And don't tell me my employer won't let me get it fixed. I don't want to hear it. You're the captain of that ship. If your truck is that far torn apart, you don't belong driving it. It doesn't belong on the highway.
Yeah, and that's one of those things where, like, a lot of people get upset about the hours of service, and they get upset about the logging of the hours of service, whether ELD or not. And they say, do you know why we have to have the hours of service we have? Because there was too many drivers that were not doing what you just said, of saying no. You
Right.
know, the dispatcher's saying, no, man, you got to get that load going. bro, I drove 1,000 miles. I need to take a couple hour nap, man. You guys just ran my wheels off of me yesterday, and I drove 1,000 miles yesterday. I
Yeah.
got 2 hours sleep, loaded this load, and now you guys, I'm running two logbooks right now so you guys can keep your IFTA correct, and I can be legal
Right.
to run. Well, no,
Yeah.
if the company's telling you go out and run that rig with the bumper hanging off of it, or the fenders gone, and look at them and tell them, no, how about you come drive this truck? Okay, because
Well, and that's where
I'm taking it to the
exactly.
closest travel center, repair shop, or dealership, and I'm pulling this
Right.
thing in there to get it fixed. And if you
Mhm.
tell me no, you're not going to fix it, well, guess what? In today's day and age, we have these things called Uber. You have
Right.
Lyft. Hell,
Yep.
you could probably even, just look around for any taxi service. Because before Uber and Lyft came around, there were taxi services in every town, basically.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, back before we had, the cell phones, you just dialed 411 and got information, and you could literally say,
Yeah.
"Hey, I'm in this town and I need a taxi." And they would
Yep.
literally give you the number for a taxi service, and you wrote it down, and you could call them,
Absolutely.
and they'll load everything. All you got to do is unload it all. Load it up in some trash bags, get it out of the truck, leave it at the dealership. If it's a Freightliner, leave it at the Freightliner. If it's a Peterbilt or a Kenworth, leave it over there at the Packard dealer. Unload that. You do not need to be driving for that company if they're going to treat you that way. But
Well,
that goes
and
back to that trucker appreciation that we're talking about,
yeah,
where
exactly.
they're not
I
where
agree.
they're not treating the drivers
Trucker
correctly.
appreciate.
That's why we're having the hours of service rules we have to have.
Right.
That's why, but this is also when you're getting into this nonsense where people aren't fixing the trucks.
Right.
Because I'm going to tell you right now, your bumper comes off and goes through my old lady's car. Your last worry is going to be the cops. If I get to you
Oh
before
no,
they
I
do,
agree.
you're going to have a problem.
You're good.
So yeah, that's where a lot of that comes into. So
And I'll more than likely be in the courtroom waiting on you.
yeah,
The thing is, we need appreciation in the trucking community, and and before I even go any farther, we darn well, I'm going to show some appreciation right now. Uh, Farmers, you're not recognized near what you're supposed to be recognized. I see you. The firefighters, both volunteer and paid. It doesn't matter what anybody else says. We recognize you. We know you're out there. Uh, my grandfather was 65 years as a volunteer. EMS, nurses, you're recognized. We see you. FOPT sees you. We know how valuable you are. We know the fact that you're not recognized near what you should be for any of those jobs there. The military, we know that you have certain days a year that everybody celebrates you, but it seems like you're forgotten every other time. We didn't forget you.
boom.
We actually recognize that you're out there. Our boy right here, Cupcake, ex-military. We and he's not the only one that's in our group that's ex-military. We know that you're out there. We're talking to trucking side, but I want you to know that we personally at FOPT recognize every one of you and how hard you work and what you sacrifice to do what you do, and we appreciate you. Um, this is just the trucking side of things that we're trying to take care of, and we're hoping that we can get you guys involved, all of you involved, and get some appreciation coming your way eventually here too.
Yeah, I got a lot of military friends. Mine was a very short stay due to my knee getting blown out. So that's one of those things. So but yeah, I can definitely tell you I've got a lot of friends that are Army. Some of them been over to the sandbox. I've got some Marine friends that have been to the sandbox. Uh, they're, I can tell you, my first experience, and this is going back almost 20 years, I decided to go back to school for a little bit. And I was going to get my RN. And while I was going back to school there for a little bit, I ran into made some friendships over there with some guys that were some Vietnam vets. And
Okay.
one of them's name was Ned, and he had chronic kidney stones. And I was walking by the one day, I seen him. He didn't look too well, and I'm like, "You all right, Ned?" And he's like, "No, I think I got another bad kidney stone." And I was like, "Well, you need anything, man?" He's like, "No, I think I'm all right. I think I just need to sit here, man." I'm like, "Okay." So about 20 minutes later goes by. I come walking back by again and I see him and I'm like, man, you still looking pretty haggard here, man. I said, what's going on? And he's like, no, I said, man, I think you need to go to the hospital. Well, you might be right. I was like, so where are we going? He goes, well, I'm a vet. He goes, I go to the VA, and because he had some other injuries that were military related that basically
Right.
disabled him. And so I took him over there and we're sitting there and I watch another veteran come in and he's in a wheelchair and he's complaining of almost everything that you would see for a heart attack.
Right.
They let him sit in the waiting room.
Jeez.
I literally was flabbergasted to see that happen. And that was my first real experience with the VA. And
Right.
and how little respect that you see. Now, mind you, that was 20 some years ago, and I hope things have
Right.
changed since then. But to watch
I'm
that
not
happen in
hearing
Montgomery County, Ohio, it
I'm
stick
not
with me.
hearing a whole lot. I'm hearing some good reports, but I'm not hearing a lot.
Yeah.
I it's like a 50-50. You get a good report, and then you get too bad, and then you get a good report. Um,
And the worst of it
and
is,
we're
though,
hope
is we're sending these guys and gals over here, overseas. They're not okay. Let's be honest here. Going over to Iraq, they weren't fighting for our freedom. Okay,
no,
they
no.
weren't fighting for our freedom. They're fighting for money.
Oh, sure,
That's what that is. That is all about oil.
sure.
We already know that. We've already figured this out. You
Oh,
know,
absolutely.
I truly believe the Afghanistan thing has to do with poppies and everything else over there because that's one of their biggest exports. But and we all know that the whole opioid epidemic and everything like that. So, but when you see that go on and you see these men and women that are going over there and they're you know getting blown up and everything else that goes on inside, when you're over there in the sandbox and stuff, and then we come back and treat it as such, like I can be humble enough to say that I'm glad I'm treated as good as I am as a truck driver and not as
Right.
bad as what I've seen a lot of our veterans be treated. Because I
Oh
believe
no,
they're treated worse than we are. So
our veterans are treated a lot worse than we are. Our and I'm talking veterans on as far as firefighting, EMS, all of them, military. They all fall in that same category, and I feel bad for every one of our veterans.
yeah,
But again, that's what we're hoping to do is bring if we can bring awareness inside the community, every community that we touch and move down the line and intersect with, we hope to bring that, what we're doing here to them
yeah.
and we'll and work with them and help them get their recognition and the appreciation for them as well. We have a world that lost sight of what's important and the people that are been pushed to the shadows, the truck drivers, the farmers, the firefighters, the EMS, our nurses. It seems we hear about doctors all day long. I don't want to hear about doctors anymore. I want to hear from the nurses.
Well, the nurses are the
They're
ones that are really running the show, not the doctors so much. I mean, I
right.
can
The
tell you
men
that.
and
So
the men and the women nurses out there. God bless them. They're the ones that are with the kids and the ones that are hurting and holding hands and trying to help them through this. It's not the doctors. Doctors are in and out of a room in 10 minutes and they're done.
well, but
Um,
see, the one thing that would help us here though would be skilled labor. If
well,
we're
and there you
recognized,
go.
if we would be recognized as skilled labor, because look, I understand electricians and welders. You have nurses, physical therapists, respiratory therapists. Those are all considered skilled trades. Whether they've went to college for a 2 year or a 4 year or whatever that they've done, or like with a lot of the electricians and the skilled trades for like the construction and things, whether it be a pipe fitter or whatever. Yeah, those guys and gals go through an apprenticeship and then, the journeyman and then so on and so forth. We need to have that same recognition here to help with that. And because I can tell you, a lot of people say, well, it ain't, you're just driving a truck. You're just driving a truck. Okay. Yes, we are driving a truck, but I want you to take that job of just driving a truck and I want you to figure out the quickest and safest way to go from, we'll just say, Richmond, Virginia to, I don't know, Junction City, Kansas.
Yep.
Okay. Nick, can you get that truck from that A to B? And then are you going to make sure that you're going to hit that appointment time? You know,
Okay, well,
so
here's more to that, and this is what a lot of people don't understand. Let's talk about this for a minute. What a lot of people don't understand is it's not just driving a truck.
mhm,
It's not just wheels. It's not you're not just holding a steering wheel with your foot up on the dash and staring out the window. When you're a professional truck driver, you're watching it. Let's say you're in 3 lanes of traffic. You're in that middle lane. You're watching your mirrors. You're watching every car that's coming up past the left, coming up past the right. You're watching what they're actually doing in their car.
yes.
So you're watching their actions. Not only are you watching their actions, you're watching the actions of the people in front of you. You're watching for the school buses. You're watching the kids bounce around the school bus. You're watching literally every action that every vehicle on the road is doing, plus trying to keep your truck between the lines and safe,
Mhm.
and leaving yourself an out, which every truck driver should be doing. Every truck driver should have an out. That's a Smith's driving standard. If you don't know what the Smith driving standard is, go look it up. It is a amazing program that honestly should be in every truck driving school nationwide. It should be mandated. Um, but you got to have an out, and if you don't have an out, you should be in the mentality that if I've got to ditch this truck to save everybody on this highway, I'm ditching this truck. Your life over theirs. That's what a professional truck driver is. We aren't just holding a wheel. We're watching you and every other personal vehicle on the highway, including the motorcycles. We're trying to watch every move that you're making. If you reach for your shifter, or it looks like you're leaning to the right, we know you're moving to the right. If you're moving to the left, if you're shifting your seat, we're thinking you're moving to the left. If you reach for your cell phone, we know when your head is looking down and not looking up. We can see it from the cab of our trucks. This is what a professional truck driver does every single minute on the road. We're not just holding a steering wheel. And if you think that's not mentally, just self-destructive to be able to pay attention to every one of those details and then take and tell us that we're unskilled, I don't know we are in a industry that there is a quote: the day you think you know everything about trucking, hand your keys off and go home, because it is a consistent learning process. There is always something new, a new backing maneuver, a new section, or something that you've got to back into you've never backed into before, a scenario on the road you've never come across before, a mechanical problem you may never have fixed before. There is so much to the trucking industry, and being a professional truck driver. People really don't understand that uh, the size of the responsibility and the size of the learning that comes with it. It is consistently day to day to day to day to day.
Well, and see, this is where you get into where we talk about like these mega carriers under these huge umbrella corporations and stuff, where I truly believe that they brought out the automatic transmission so that you removed some of the skill set. Now, I'm not saying that if you drive an automatic truck that you're not a trucker. But what I am saying is that you should have to be able to drive a manual. There should not be just on a license that A for automatic only. And the reason why I say this is this. There is something that goes on in your brain when you're in traffic and we're saying you're doing the 3 or 4 lanes of traffic and
Mhm.
you're in one of those middle 2 lanes there and you're trying to keep your following distance here. You also got to be paying attention to what gear you're in,
Yeah.
because if you're over here in like 12th and the next thing you know you got to hit the brakes, you got to also be able to figure out where you're going to put it into gear, or you might, because you can't just be floating. I mean, I know a lot of
Nope.
guys that do. They'll shove their clutch in and they'll just coast. And at times it's okay, but at other times you probably ought to make sure you're in the right gear, because if you need to, you might need to have to accelerate to go to the right or
Right.
to the left to get yourself out
Right.
of that situation. And this is why I say what I say, as far as we need to remove that automatic restriction off the license. And the other
Well,
reason
you know
being
that
is
the auto
that the mega carriers, they've dumbed it down.
Yeah.
They've dumbed it
Yeah.
down so that they can get
Sure.
drivers in there, and so they can get drivers in there at a lesser wage.
Well,
Because
and
if think about it.
this goes back to what we were just talking about with their narrative of 60,000 truck drivers short.
Mhm.
You know, the more that they keep pushing this narrative and they keep pushing it over, the news forecasts and all, you see it in we have a couple of trucking newspapers out here, and a couple of magazines out here that we have Overdrive and a few others. You see it in there on a consistent basis, almost yearly now, where the ATA is pushing the narrative that we're 60,000 drivers short. The more that they push that, the dumber down that they can make it, the regulations and the trucks, to the point where they tell everybody, well, anybody can be a truck driver. Not everybody can be a truck driver.
Well, no.
It takes the ability. You have to be able to do a slip sleep schedule almost weekly, if it's not daily. You could be switching from a morning run to a night run by the next day, back to an afternoon run to where you're sleeping half the day, half the night. It changes dramatically. The 11 and 14 rule right now, most of these people out here right now can't drive past 8 or 9 hours. They're on the road at dawn, they're off the road before it's dark. You've seen it, I've seen it. Everybody that's listening that knows this, by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, truck stops are packed. You can't even get into a truck stop. That's the paid parking, which we'll get into another time. The paid parking as well as the free parking, and then you got them double, tripled up. You can barely get into fuel islands by 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So, the automatic was the solution to start fixing that truck driver shortage, which there is none. We actually have an overpopulation of truck
There
drivers right
never
now.
has been a shortage.
No, no, it was
There's never been one.
a false narrative utilized by mega corporations, by the ATA, in order to push their agendas. That's why it was pushed it's still being pushed as hard as it is. And we'll get into that next episode, where we start showing you numbers and start explaining about the ATA and all these other groups that have been pushing this narrative. It's a false narrative, and it really needs to go away, and we need to get back to the professionalism of truck driving. The truck driver, the trucks, the attitude out here, as well as getting us moved from unskilled or recognized as unskilled and get us up to skilled labor. Because by doing that as well, you're not only taking and boosting the entire morale of the trucking industry, that there, when you push to skilled labor and it's recognized as such, we go from where we are now, which is the 1980s pay scale. Now we can sit there and say, okay, well, we're recognized as skilled labor by the United States. Therefore, as skilled labor, we demand that we get more per mile, or a higher percentage of the freight that we're hauling, or whatever it is. You have that narrative now to push. And without that skilled labor push, without that skilled labor narrative, you don't have it.
Well, the thing of it is, I think part of the issue, I don't even really think, I think if we can, or maybe not remove, but stop this false narrative of a trucker
Mm-hmm.
shortage. And because all that's really happening with that is it's driving down the rates.
Right.
It's driving down the rates for owner operators, and it's driving down the wages for company drivers. Okay.
Absolutely.
So because it's a supply and demand thing. We are a capitalist society. So everything
Yep.
that we do is off of supply and demand. It's the
Absolutely.
same reason of why they push so hard to separate or create, I should maybe not say separate, but create a two income household.
Yep.
Because when you could still do it on a single income, you know, well, no. Well, now we need to make sure that both parents are working. Well, when you do
Yeah.
that, now there's twice as many people in the workforce. So now we don't have to pay as much money. It's the
Right.
same because you got everybody out
Same
here.
principle.
You got everybody out here trying to get a job. So
Same
you
principle.
can look at it, but before that, if it was when it was single income households, you go through and this guy or this gal that might be the one that's going out and working for the house, they're going through and there's not that many people out there that could be an architect, or not that
Nope.
many people that was going to be a welder or a plumber or an electrician
Right.
or whatever. Now you go through and you do that. It's the same way with our industry. You shove a
Right.
crap ton more people in there. Well, if you ain't willing to do the job at 35 cents a mile, I get you. I guarantee I can get this one over here to do it,
Right.
or this one or this one. And then especially
Right.
if you're bringing people in from outside of the country, that like the one that I think they got the thing in Nebraska right now that they did this whole thing with over in Africa or whatever, that they're going to bring in like, I don't know, so many thousand people into the trucking industry.
Yep.
Why? Well, this guy's out here trying. I think he's the Secretary of State or something like that for Nebraska's trying. Same thing. Well, we've got a driver shortage. No, obviously somebody
No.
over here has got is wanting to drive down shipping rates or drive down wages on a company driver. That's all you're doing. Because
Well,
if the
you
people
do
won't do it now for 30 cents, I guarantee you those will, because they want to
well,
be
you're
here.
not just driving down the rates for the company drivers. What you're doing is pushing the owner operators completely out of the picture.
Well, and
You're
mega
basically
carriers
what you're
want
doing is
that. They want that
oh,
with no will.
oh, they've been wanting that for
Yes.
decades. They've been wanting to push the owner operator out. They've been wanting total control of the freight across the continental United States. They can sit there and lie to your face and tell you, no, that's not what we want. We want equality. No, you don't. You don't want equality at all.
Mhm.
You want those truck drivers that are owner operators, which are usually anywhere between 10 and 20 times more experience than any truck driver you ever will get. You actually want them to be so desperate that they close their business and have to turn to you for a job.
Mhm.
And that's what this whole agenda is behind this 60,000 truck driver shortage. Let's bring in even more people to fill those spots, knowing that eventually they're going to be taken out of those spots anyway, either by Department of Transportation or illegal maneuvering or whatever the case may be. But they're going to eventually, what they are is temporary to push the owner operators out because we can't haul the freight for $1 a mile or 90 cents a mile. You push them out, you get rid of the ones that were temporary, and because you've got a fresh stock of 60,000 professional truck drivers that just shut their businesses down that need jobs now. So, if you look at the way things are actually going, that is actually the circle. That's your circle right there. And this whole bring the Africans in now. Okay, so we're not going to just bring in, we're not going to only allow the illegals coming in and that are coming up with these false licenses that we're finding everywhere. Now we're going to bring Africans in that, yes, they can speak a little better English. They have a little better concept of it for the most part. But you're going to bring them in now and put them out here on the road. And what you're doing is creating more hate and division inside our industry. And we need to put the brakes on and stop all this and say, listen, you're not doing this at all. We're not allowing it.
Well, and that's the biggest
And
thing of where the hate comes
FOPT's
from.
got to put their foot down about it.
Well, and that's where a lot of the hate comes from, in that whole foreigner, as a lot of people like to say, and I put it in the quotations
You're
there,
right.
but and that's where a lot of it comes from. And unfortunately, in my opinion, it's not the foreigner's fault.
No, it's not.
All they want to do is they just want to come over here and make money. They look at what used to be the American dream, because it ain't the American dream anymore. But what
It hasn't been
used
the
to be
American dream in
Yeah,
decades.
but what used to be the American dream, and that's what they see though. Because if you go over to some of these countries, and I've studied it and looked at it, some of they're basically pulling people out of what we don't even consider poverty. We consider you're not even alive. The
Right.
way that some of them are living with, like, they're making like a nickel a day or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
And, we talk about living paycheck to paycheck over here, making, what, $1,000 a week. We got people that are living paycheck to paycheck at $1,000 a week. And
Right.
that guy or gal could go and go back home, and for $1,000 a week, they could live almost a year on $1,000.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
it's not their fault. What we have to try to
No.
get people to realize in our industry is it's not their fault. They're just trying to get a job. They're just trying to make some money to take care of their family, no different than you and I are doing it, and the other 4 million truck drivers that are out there. We're all just trying, no different than the nurses and the firefighters.
Right.
We're doing their job because, one, we like, most people do a job for two reasons. If they stay there, it's because they like their job, they enjoy what they do. Like you and I, we love driving a truck, so that's why
Absolutely.
we do it. The other reason we do it is so that that roof that's above our head right now stays above our
Right.
head.
Right.
So the electricity that's on, so that I can see when it's dark out, stays on, or so that
Right.
you and I can sit here and talk, from 9 hours away from each other, and we can talk to one another through Wi-Fi and electricity and everything else and the technologies we have. But we had to pay for those things, and that's the
Right.
same reason why those people are doing it. They're trying to provide a better life for their family back home, and somebody's giving them opportunity to come over here and do it. Now,
Well, it's
this is
that's
where we
the
gotta
H
get
that's
mad, not at those
yep.
guys and gals that are coming over here. You need to get mad at the Secretary of State or the Department of Transportation or the ATA or whoever, whatever company it is, whatever mega carrier is gonna hire them. Because let's face it, most of those drivers are gonna have to be hired on by somebody that's self-insured, because there's not a whole lot of information about them. So the insurance rates, I know for somebody like me, that my insurance would probably triple just off of one driver
Well, and
because
that's
there's
the
no
thing.
information on them.
Most of these H-1As and H-2Bs, these visas that everybody, has been arguing and fighting about, what they don't realize is they're hired by a third party outlet. And I've heard people say, "Well, it's the third party outlet's fault." No, it's not. It they go to these locations all over the world, and most of them are, like you said, poverty stricken. So and they put this information out. Hey, we're looking for new people to go to America and become a truck driver. This is what you can make. And when they see the
Mhm,
numbers that they can make, it like you said, it's a boost of lifestyle. They don't have to live in that slum poverty like they did, or they don't have to struggle quite so hard. So they sign up for this. Well, we have all of the mega carriers over on this side that have that information to those third party hiring groups that know who's coming here and say, okay, well, we've got our hands in Department of Transportation, FMCSA. We're gonna go ahead and push this regulation. That regulation gets passed, or that exemption gets passed to go ahead and allow them to pull or drive trucks over here, which we see time and time again. Exemptions for owner operators is zero, versus the mega carriers, which is, they get every exemption that comes across the board. But these H2As and H2Bs are not at fault. It's the actual mega carriers that know they're coming, that hire them on, like you said, that are self-insured because they can take as many as they want on, give them a temporary license because they're a work visa, put them in that semi, work them for 6 months, send them on their way, and they've already got a new group on their way back over here.
mhm,
So, and they're going home with 6 months worth of truck driving pay at $1,000 a week. That they just made, let's say they made $50,000. They went home with money that they haven't seen in a lifetime.
mhm,
So why get mad at them? The mega carriers are out there knowing what's going on. They have contact information with these third party hiring agencies that are hiring outside the country.
mhm,
You're not going to tell me they don't.
mhm,
If
mhm,
they sit there and lie to your face, don't let them piss on you and call it rain.
mhm,
Call them out.
mhm,
It's time for accountability across the board, and this is one of those. It's time for the hate to stop for people. Every one of us has been in that position. If you haven't been rock bottom eating PB&J, if you're lucky enough to eat PB&J. I know people that have gotten rock bottom eating ketchup and
Mustard packets.
crackers.
Yeah, I've seen
Yeah,
that.
and mustard
Yeah.
packets just to get through another day. So if you've never been in that position, you will never understand what these people have faced, and what they're trying to do is better themselves. They are being promised something by a third party agency, knowing that that third party agency is in contact with the self-insured mega carriers that are going to hire these people on.
And the other thing
They
is,
don't come here without that. They're not going to come here unless they have that guarantee.
right. Well, and the mega carriers, they have the millions and billions of dollars to do the training. Or if the insurance is expensive on them, they don't care.
What training?
Well, no, I'm just saying, like, they got the training to at least get their CDL, get their permit, whatever, that little bit of training that they're going to give them, they can absorb that. Because let's be honest here, they are getting the $5 and $6 and $7 a mile for their freight contracts. And then they're turning around because they're brokering out that freight that they can't haul, so they're making even more money off of it. So
Okay.
if they need to, yeah, okay, we'll take a hit while we're training this group. We're going to hire, I don't know, we'll say they're bringing over 100.
Right.
And they're going to split them between, I don't know, we'll just say 6 or 7 of the mega carriers. Well, at that, it's what, 15 or so a group. Well,
Right.
what's that on the insurance? Me, I can't afford that as an owner operator. There's no way on God's green earth that I could do that on insurance. But them, who's got the millions of billions because they've got the contracts, they've got over 66% of the freight between the top 15 mega carriers.
Right.
It's right there. They can afford it. They can afford it because, one, they're getting the contracts. And because they have the massive amount that they can move it. Plus, they have most of the
Right.
trailers that are on, and they're getting the percentage off the load. Even if their people ain't moving it, they're still making money off the loads.
Well, and the school standards have dropped so much that most of these mega carriers have their own schools. They can put these people right through
And that's
school
the
and right
training
through
I'm
the
talking
driving.
about, though.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
training I'm
It's.
talking about.
I
Getting
mean,
that
these
CDL.
driving schools are below standard at this point on what I believe a professional truck driver should be taught and how they should be taught. And we have a gentleman in our group that's going to be working on that. His name is Rob, certified instructor, as far as a driver, a truck driver instructor, as well as a truck driver trainer instructor. We're hoping that, with his help, we can put together a whole different training package that's going to up the standard. But at this point, the standard of trucking school is bare minimal. I mean, how do you put somebody who doesn't speak English through an English truck driving school and they pass it? It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, it's called translators.
Unless you, well, and that's the thing. Now, so you're translating everything without the second thought that this guy's not going to have a translator in that truck for the next, the entirety time while he's driving. So there's nobody to translate any of this to him or her while they're on the highway. So the mega carriers are not. They're not only hiring these H1Bs and H2 1Bs and H2Bs, these visas. They're actually endangering the public.
Yes.
Knowingly endangering the public by hiring on these visas and providing interpretation for, I'll talk you through, we can do a speech test and instead of a written test, or we'll do a speech test instead of a reading test, and we'll have an interpreter there for you for your driving test. And no, what you're doing is knowingly endangering the public. And if people don't wake up and recognize what's going on out here, and that the mega carriers, which if you go look it up, 90% of these mega carriers belong to the American Trucking Association. So do this. There's math there, and some 1 and 1 equals 2. So put it all together. You're starting to see the real danger out here is not the owner operator. It's not the livestock hauler who's pushing it down the road. Most of them are very safe. They're, they might look like they're hauling butt, and sometimes they have to, but they're safe guys. They know where their outs are. They know how to get out of danger. These are professional truck drivers. They're not just weak little, well, JB Hunt's in on the cattle
So
hauling,
is
so that
Morton.
might, yeah. So they might that might change a little bit. We'll hope that the professional livestock haulers push them out real fast. But that, we need to recognize that the ATA is not a good organization anymore. We need to recognize
Oh,
that,
Ida's not a good organization
yeah,
anymore either.
OIDA is okay. We're into it, so might as well let's get into it. Uh, OIDA, OIDA has talked about their numbers for a decade, how they have 150,000 drivers supporting them. The fact is that probably 10,000, only about 10,000 of those truck drivers actually support OIDA. And OIDA can prove me wrong by showing me 150,000 truck drivers that support them, but it's about
Well,
10,000.
I'm here to
And
tell you this
here's
one real quick. It's only going to be 149,999 because I use their CMCI for my drug consortium stuff,
right.
but I don't support fucking OIDA.
Well, and that's what I'm getting ready to say is okay, their life insurance policies, their drug consortiums, their fuel cards,
Yeah.
all the stuff that they've got, the only way that a truck driver can access any of that, and you could be a company driver and actually sign on with OIDA. You can be company, you can be an owner operator, you can be a lease, an independent, you can be anything at this point. But the only way that you get the better life insurance rate, the only way you get the better fuel rate, the only way you get any of that is by purchasing a membership through them. Now, by doing that, they get to turn around and use you as a member to
Mhm.
say, well, we have 150,000 members strong. You will only have 150,000 members strong because of your insurance, because of your fuel card discount, because of certain things that you have there. It doesn't mean that we support a single word that comes out of Spencer's mouth that he can't even speak with a speech written right in front of him.
The thing of it is,
Okay.
well, look at it. It's not even Spencer. Spencer sent Mr. Pugh to the Congress here just what was it, a month or two ago?
Yeah,
He didn't
month or
even
two.
go. Now,
Mhm.
how are you as the president? Are you not going to be the one going to talk to Congress?
That's because he embarrassed himself on stage, live stage in front of the
I'm
nation
just
with
saying
the
though.
Department of,
How are you going to be the
you know,
president and not be the one in Congress talking to Congress about because you're supposed to be the leader, which means you're the
right.
one that's supposed to be doing the hard stuff, you know?
Well, and again, the 150,000 is not 150,000,
No, it's
folks.
not.
You're like I said, you're lucky if you've got 10,000 that actually support OIDA
Hmm.
and are willing to stand toe to toe or shoulder to shoulder with them. 10,000 is a low number for any kind of support. And we have organizations out here all over this place that are trucking organizations, 501c3s, 501c4s, so-called trucker advocates. Listen, they're not everything they claim to be. There are a few that are. I won't take that away from them. I'm not calling anybody by name, and I refuse to because I'm not giving them that kind of authority and power. Um, but there are a few out here that they're no different than me and Cupcake. We're passionate. We're fed up with the lies. We're fed up with the deception. We're fed up with the way that the gears are turning right now. The gear ratio does not match the rig. Let's put it in terms like that, where every truck driver understands it. The gear ratio does not fit the rig at this point.
No.
Um, we're seeing a gear ratio for a Pete 379 that's stuck on a Freightliner Cascadia. It don't work. It don't work. So it's time for a lot of re-engineering. We need to put accountability on our interior as well as our exterior. We're going to focus a lot on the exterior, but we're not taking eyes off the interior. We need to bring trucker appreciation back within our own communities before we can, and listen, if you're getting a plastic cup tomorrow, if you're getting a Swift Night T-shirt that they paid $5 for, if you're getting a $5 Subway card that is basically useless because you can't even get a sandwich for that. If you're getting that stuff and somebody's smiling in your face saying we appreciate you, they're full of shit and they're lying to you. Let's just call it for what it is.
Oh, I used to get them at all the
That
companies I worked at. I used to get
uh,
the little pull string bags or the tumbler or
right, yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah.
And then when you look at the
Now,
tumbler, you're like, they spent $2 on this.
yeah, it's one that's going to go to the dump. It doesn't last.
Yeah.
But I also want to recognize, and I think Cupcake can agree with me. If you're a mom and pop company or you're a little larger company, um, just an owner operator with a few drivers, and you took care of your drivers and you're taking care of them and you recognize them, and God bless you. We want to hear from you. We want to know where you are. We would love to have a conversation with you, uh, especially when it comes to trucker appreciation, how you take care of your truck drivers. We would love to have that conversation with you. I think a lot of people need to hear there are people like you out there. I myself, I'm leased on with a company. I got a message the other day that was sent out to all the drivers in email. In fact, from my company, which is very small mom and pop. It's military, uh, veteran owned. That said, long message saying we love you and we appreciate you guys, and watch the mail. There's something special coming out to all you guys. So, to know that they took the time to find something out of the ordinary or that did something from the heart that means something. And there are companies like this out there. Um,
There are.
and we want to hear from you guys. If you happen to come across this podcast or you happen to be listening, reach out to myself, leave us a comment, anything. Let us know where you are. We would love to have you on for an interview and talk to you personally about the state of things, what you think we can do, what you actually do in the company to help your professional truckers and how you support them. We would love to hear from you,
Yeah, because
and
we
we
really
we
need to get that,
appreciate.
though. We need to get that throughout the rest of the industry. We need to
Yeah,
get the good carriers back.
right.
Um, because that's one of the ways of also turning it around, you know, um, of getting rid of cutting out the cancer, as a lot of people say.
Yeah,
You got to cut out the
yeah,
cancer, and the carriers out there that are the fly by night operations that we see and we hear about all the time, that we really need to start focusing on, getting rid of them as well. But I mean, that's the thing that we say a lot of. We need to focus. We need to focus. There's so much right now in this industry that's broken that needs focusing on. We do have a mountain to climb, but I'm here to climb it. So,
well, we're both here.
and
We're gonna be the pack mules, brother.
oh, I already know that. I already
we're,
know that.
we're gonna be
I already know
we're
that.
gonna be the pack
I can tell you
mules.
this. I'm glad I've got the broad shoulders. I'm just going to say, I'm glad that, because I was just sitting there the other day and, uh, I was trying to figure out, I'm getting ready to get married here come this April.
Right?
I'm sitting here
Yeah.
trying to figure out what kind of size jacket. And I wear a 56 long. So I'm glad that I do. I got to have shoulders for this. So, and
Oh
I'm glad
no.
I don't have chicken legs because I don't think I can handle the weight on that either. So,
Oh, good
you know,
gracious! Come on now. I got the chicken legs,
well,
but I
I
got the
wasn't
big
going to bring
shoulders.
you up in this, but it was just my little way to mess with you a little bit on the chicken legs. So,
Don't underestimate those chicken
uh,
legs, man. They
oh,
can hold some weight.
oh, I hear the same
Um,
thing out of my best friend. I bust him all the time. He's like, I can move a lot of weight. I'm like, I know you can.
um, it's going to take more than us. I'm hoping that this movement that we're starting really catches, and I hope we catch the real
Hmm.
passionate truck drivers out here. And listen, FOPT is got its members. I'm not going to lie. We have our inner circle, and that's kind of where the power lies, so to speak, and how everything moves forward. But we're going to need outside support. We're going to need the truck drivers. We're going to need the professionals that have the passion like you and I do. We're going to need the rookies that want this lifestyle, that have been wanting this lifestyle, like the one that you were just talking about, that came over here from watching all the old time trucker movies. And we need those kinds of men and women out here that are going to stand there with the right attitude. There's you can look at 1,000 different groups that have failed. They've chased money, they've chased fame. This group is not wanting it. I don't want it. Cupcake don't want it. I don't know. I don't know anybody that really wants it. We're not front page headliners, folks. We're just passionate about the industry, and we've had enough. And I believe that the ideas that we have got and the re-engineering that we want to do is possible, but it's going to take more than just our little group. It's going to take more than just me and Cupcake. It's going to take
a change of mindset inside of
yeah,
the industry. And this is
yeah,
part of that re-engineering that I talked about, and that you've kind of taken all my tagline there a little bit and ran with it. But it is a re-engineering. It's a re-engineering of the mindset. It's a
Mhm.
re-engineering of, and not just the mindset, but it's a re-engineering of the entire industry. Because right now, yes, when in 1979, when Carter signed the deregulation of trucking, yes, it created a lot more open avenues for people that wanted to become owner operators and wanted to,
Right,
and not just had to work for the Teamsters or whoever was available back then, you
right.
know. But at the same time, it opened up our industry for a lot of scam artists, if you will.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
we have, it's like right now, we've kind of almost reverted back right now to the pre 1979 deregulation, and the fact that now, back then you could have spent up to $250,000 to try to get your own numbers to where, by the time you try to get the lane and everything else. Well, now to get your DOT number, you got to buy a truck, you got to have insurance. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Now you're paying for that. But if you got a brand new number, a lot of the brokerages and shippers won't even look at you if your number has not aged at least 6 months.
Right,
So we're almost reverting right back to where we was pre 1980 deregulation, with the fact that, I mean, think about it. You got and you buy a truck. If you're going to get a decent truck, you're spending 75, 80 grand on a decent used truck.
oh yeah,
Maybe even a hundred
new off
grand
the
for a
lot,
hundred. You know
new
what I
off
mean?
new off the lot, you're talking quarter
Yeah.
million.
Well, if you buy a new truck, $250,000. But
Yeah,
and then, but you got all the money to spend out for your DOT number, as far as your insurance and everything like that. Now, you can do the financing side on that, but I'm hearing from, like, even my insurance people, they're telling me that it's almost $1,000 more than what I'm paying now for somebody that's coming into the industry on a monthly basis. So that's an extra 6 grand on top of what I'm paying right now, not to mention the truck
right.
payment that's on there. And so you're literally paying out, we'll just say, I don't know, you fork out almost $100,000 to sit around for 6 months. Unless you
Nice.
want to, go through and haul bottom of the barrel freight and run 90 cents a mile, but you're just going to
Yeah, and
go
at
broke
that
even
point, you're not
faster.
making any money.
Yeah, you're going to go
Yeah,
broke even faster. Especially if you're spending these, you've already spent this outrageous amount of money for a truck payment, for insurance payment, for all of your stuff. I mean, if you paid somebody to set up your DOT number for you,
right.
so we've pretty much almost reverted right back to that pre ICC deregulation with the
Wait a minute,
FMCSA.
is that gonna make you the new rubber duck?
I hope not. I hope not. I hope not. I do not want to be the new rubber duck. God, I do not want
I'll
to be
tell
the
you,
new rubber duck.
uh,
Oh,
rubber duck and pig pen here.
yeah, yeah. No, no,
Yeah,
no,
we're gonna might have to change that up
no,
here.
no. I did
This is
not.
the 2025, the new rubber duck and pig pen,
Yeah,
all alive and
yeah.
well.
But that's where the re-engineering comes in, though, on the fact that if we need to pull this, we need to get rid of the scam artists, and that's where I believe I talked to some of my broker friends, and everybody was big on this broker transparency. And I tried to explain to them, I said, one of the things that it will help with is if everybody can see on that rate con all the information.
Yeah.
Because if you see it on the rate con, when the rate con comes to you before you say, yes, I'll take that rate con, if you
Right.
see that, well, wait a minute, why is so okay, Kellogg's or Post or Cargill, who what does say Cargill? Cargill's the shipper on the load. And
Yep.
then broker A is doing this, and then there's a broker B, and then now we got broker C.
Yeah.
And wait a minute, C's the one that I talked to.
Yeah.
And we'll just say, Cargill's paying $5 a mile for that freight. Well, then broker A turned around and they want $1 off that $5. So now it's
Yep.
down to $4. Broker B wants $1 a mile off that. So now we're down to $3. And then broker
Right.
C turned around and said, well, yeah, I'll let you haul it for, they want $1. So now you're down to $2,
Right.
and Cargill's still spending $5. But the thing of it is this is broker C. They don't care because why? They're liable to be one of those overseas brokers.
Yeah.
So you're going to haul that. They're going to get paid. They're going to send the money into broker B or send the bills into broker B. They're going to wait for broker B to give them the money. But then when it comes time for you if you're doing net 30 with them or whatever, and you're not factoring, well, now, boom, there you go. And even if you are factoring, if the factoring company doesn't get paid, they take the money back from you. It's either that or they got to go through and fight on the insurance side against their, file a claim.
Well, that's where you've got to turn, and that's where you've got to know who you're dealing with factoring. You need to know what recourse and non-recourse means, and and that's that again goes back to education, and you got to know who you're working with. My company that I'm leased on with is very particular about who they work with. They got a lot of their own stuff. Very small company, but they've been around for 20, 25 years. They've gotten into these areas and locations, and they have a great success rate as far as on time. So, you have to know, you have to be intelligent about being in trucking. This isn't a, grab the first load you see and pull it for 90 cents a mile. Listen, I love freight that goes down into Florida. I will take a freight load down to Florida all day long, but I've been doing this for 26 years and know that if I'm going to Orlando or Tampa or any of that in that northern section, midsection, I'm not pulling a load out. Your load sitting on the dock because you want to pay 80 cents a mile. I'm not wasting. That's wear and tear on my truck for 45,000 pounds. That ain't worth it to me. Your load is sitting on your dock. I'm not even considering looking at loads. I am gonna use my deadhead. I'm getting out of Florida and getting up into the higher ranges.
Mm-hmm.
And if it means driving up to North Carolina, listen, I'm getting 13, 14, 15 miles to a gallon empty. I don't have a problem with that, and I'm not getting the wear and tear on my truck. So you better understand that most of us that are out here are experienced, and if you're a broker looking to get loads out of Florida, pay attention really clear. We're not staying in Florida for 80 cents a mile.
No.
By the time we drop that load, if we're not finding an appropriate load, your 80 cent, 90 cent, $1.10 a mile load is sitting there. The experienced truck driver is deadheading out of Florida and leaving your freight right where it sits because we're not pulling it.
I do it every time. I shouldn't say I do it every time. There is a guy that I deal with that I will periodically get a load that comes out of the Sarasota area, and it usually gets me up into northern Georgia, just outside of Atlanta. So, and I run hopper bottom. It's not an all the time load.
Right.
I will tell you it's a pain in the ass load because a lot of times I cannot haul certain things afterwards because of the hopper bottom side. So I have to kind of be careful on that. But if it ain't that, I'm not hauling it. I would much rather drive the 5 or 6, 700 miles empty.
Yep.
Because I know when I'm going into Florida, I'm going to make sure. Like I'm making sure that I'm bouncing back out of there, and I'm making money bouncing in there and bouncing right back out of there. And I go ahead and figure I figure 300 miles bounce.
Right.
That's what I figure on it. A 5-hour ride. Because
Yep.
usually I don't go any, usually like Lake Okeechobee is about the farthest south. I'll go down into Florida sometimes. And,
Right.
but usually if I go down there, yeah, if I'm not, if it doesn't pay me the 300 miles, come back out to be profitable,
Right.
I won't go into Florida, you know, but that's the
Well, I'll
thing.
go into I'll pull the freight in, but I'm pulling the freight in with the knowledge that I'm getting the rate
Well,
that I
that's
want
what
to
I'm talking about.
get myself, yeah, get myself back
If
out.
I'm not getting an extra 300 mile on top of it,
Right.
we'll say it's a 400-mile run to go down from
Yeah.
like the Carolinas or something down into there. Okay. Well, if I'm not making the money I need to make at 700 miles, I'm not taking the load in there,
Right.
you know? So, and then at the same time, you know, even if I were to get down in there, I want to make sure that I can get back out of there and still be profitable.
Right.
It's like I've tried to explain to some of these brokers are like, oh, but I'm like, no, no, no. My truck costs money
Right.
to drive it, regardless. My rate per mile that I figure is on all miles, regardless of
Right.
whether or not if there's a load in it or not. My fuel
Yep.
mileage, yes, when you're running empty, we're getting that 10, 11, 12, 13 mile to the
Yep.
gallon when we're empty.
Sure.
But we try to not be empty as much as possible.
Oh,
So
absolutely. I
so when
agree.
you're looking at it, it's like when you look at your IFTA, when you're doing your IFTA reports and stuff, it's an average.
Yep.
They IFTA doesn't look at it, they don't differentiate between empty miles and loaded miles.
No, they
They
don't.
want to do a mile per gallon, and that's what you're doing. Whatever you're coming
Yep.
up, that's what it is. And so I tried to explain to him, I said, the truck uses fuel, it uses oil, it uses tires, it uses brakes. Just because I don't have a load on, or I do have a load on, that doesn't change anything. It really
Right.
doesn't. But that's that re-engineering of the industry. We also had to
Right.
that's where the mindset side comes in, of having to re-engineer the mindset, and that's of brokers, shippers, and drivers. Like we
Oh,
were
yeah.
talking about with the trucker appreciation, and also the hatred that we have for foreigners. We got to re-engineer that mindset. It's not
Right.
why are you hating on somebody over here that all they're doing is trying to make money for their family?
Right.
Well, point that anger in the right direction. You know,
Right.
and it's the same way a lot of times. It's like I talk to some of these. Some of the brokers I talk to. I will tell you this: some of the people we have in our industry are part of the problem with the rates. I've talked with brokers that have literally put a load up at $4 a mile, and within 15 minutes, carriers had beat the price down to where that they were willing to take it for less than $1 a mile,
Oh, yeah.
trying to
Oh,
cut the
yeah.
next guy's throat. Like,
Yeah.
what do you that cutthroat mentality does nothing. When you're doing it over there, I hate to tell you this one, but it's happening here too.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
because yeah, you're going, oh well, I'm getting the freight. Okay, yeah, you got the freight, but now you're paying that shipper to haul it. The last time I
Yep.
checked, we're supposed to be getting paid as carriers to haul the freight and be profitable while doing it. Not
Right.
not paying them to haul the freight. If that's the case, then just why are we even doing this? Because eventually you're going to run out of money. You know,
And that's the truck driver life. I mean, that's why you're seeing people going out of business left and right. It's why you're seeing owner operators that are turning up their keys and quitting and putting their trucks up. Uh, we're seeing it all over the country, and and something to keep in mind. And we'll get into this again. I'll get into this next episode, but if you think that ATA only has their hands in mega carriers, they have a membership for shippers as well.
mhm.
So if you think that the ATA is not in with these big shippers all around the country, you got another thing coming. It's a lot bigger than what you think it is. They've got a lot more control than what you think it is. That 2 hour window that we're supposed to be okay with for shippers and receivers, we're supposed to allot them. You start seeing a bigger picture start coming around, and you start seeing the target on the owner operator get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. This is this misinformation and all of the things that we're starting to find and research into is starting to show that the whole agenda is to push the owner operator out, which is a major issue. There are laws against this, but they're doing it in ways that uh, are underhanded almost.
Well, they have lawyers that are fighting the loopholes. That's what it is.
Oh yeah, sure, yeah, exactly what it is.
You know.
So we'll get more into that, and we'll get more in depth with a lot of the stuff that we're looking at and we're doing. I do want to say that our group did talk. I missed last meeting, but the one prior to that, we will. If you listen to this, we will have a booth at Matt's. So if you come and find us, we would love to have a conversation with you.
Mm-hmm.
We are making this a real go. We will not quit on this. We're going to see this all the way to the end. We are again, to reiterate what we talked about in our first episode, we are self-funded. We're not asking you for anything. We're just asking you to be supportive. Listen to what we've got to say. Listen to what we put out there. Try to help to help as Cupcake has told you. Let's re-engineer trucking and make it the standard a lot higher than what it is today. And that's for everything. That's the education. That's the rates that we're dealing with. That's everything. The regulations, the trucker camaraderie, the recognition, all of it. We need to look at everything at the same time and not stick on one topic for 15 years. That never gets accomplished.
No,
we need everybody's support, and we hope to see you all at Matt's.
Yes, sir. And with that being said, I just looked. We've been talking for over an hour and a half, bub.
Yeah, I see that. I happen to look up and look at that, and I'm going, you know what? I think I'm going to put an ending to this one.
Yeah, we're going to have to. I'm just kind of letting you finish out your thought there, and I'm going. We got a little long-winded on this one. So, but anyways,
well,
right.
A lot of good. There's a lot of good information in there. I hope those that do listen really get this out there and let people and people really take the time to put away the differences and the anger and all the stuff that's been going on and really listen to what we've been saying. And we've got a lot more coming, folks. Stay tuned because, we're not done. We're just getting started and we plan to be around for quite a while.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. Well, with that one, I'm going to call it an end to this one, and we'll talk again next week.
Hey, you have yourself a great night. Give your wife my best.
Yeah. Bobby said hi, by the way.
Oh, absolutely. Sheila's waiting to talk to you again. So
yeah.
We'll talk soon.
All right. Later, buddy.
Later, bub.
Thanks for rolling with us on the new trucking standard by FOPT. From our seats to the nation we serve. Stay safe out there and keep on trucking.